There we go.
You have 2 of these.
Good job, man. Yeah, I actually just bought the second one because I filmed an interview with this camera with my 50mm lens, and I was like, oh my god, that looks so good. And I used to film my B camera with like, it was just a high-end handy cam. It was nice, but compared to this,
Right, you cut back and forth.
yeah, it was night and day. And so now I basically just bought the exact same camera, exact same lens. Wow, cuts together so nice. And these are like the low-end Canon cameras.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. One of the things Tim Russ and I talked about at length, name drop, was how technology has changed so much just in the past few years. Even when, 5-7 years ago, technology is so different. And like this, with this camera, even though it's sort of the low-end Canon, I can shoot Blu-ray quality footage.
Yeah.
That just, given the right lighting conditions and everything, it looks beautiful.
Oh yeah.
And I could go and film a feature film with this camera, and I could edit it at home.
Yes.
I could do all the special. Well, I couldn't, but like one does not need a film processing lab, color correction, timing, an editing crew, a negative cutter, a sound mixing person.
No, it's a brave new world, and digital technologies enable you. You could theoretically shoot the whole thing by yourself.
Yeah.
Except for acting. Theoretically, you could act it
Really?
too
Yeah.
by yourself. If you had enough lock-offs. You don't need to go to anybody.
Yeah. Now, do you have any aspirations to like make films, or are you happy to sort of be the in front of the camera guy, doing acting, performing, reality-ing?
I have several projects that I'm developing for the web, and it's funny because when you think about a feature film project, it takes years of development to get something off the ground, and millions of dollars. TV takes months, maybe a few years to get something off the ground, and tens of thousands, if not millions, in money. To do a web project, you could get something going and out there in a week with not a huge budget. And particularly these days with Indiegogo and Kickstarter, you could throw up a trailer. You could have a great idea, make a quick trailer, throw it up, and people will see that and say, that's cool, I want to be a part of that. Shut up and take my money.
They'll give you money.
They will give you money to make the thing that you want to make, which is awesome. It's a brave new world.
It's a good time.
You can get that going just like that.
Yeah, I really like the low barriers to entry. Like with as I was saying, with the cameras I have, I can go out and shoot a feature, and I love that. For just like, I think these cameras, there's a couple $1,000 in them.
Yeah.
And that's it. And if you wanted to make a movie, you could call me and I could film it.
Cool.
I'm not offering. Let's not get excited. But I guess my point is that I think it's a really great time as a filmmaker, or even as someone who wants to do interviews for his YouTube channel.
Yes.
When my friend Bill Fisher, who I think you've met, we used to have a band together years and years ago. And one of the things we would do to fill the time in between rehearsing is interview each other on camera.
Which is great practice.
Turns out, yeah.
No, it is.
It's great practice.
Yeah.
And it's funny looking back on those, because we would shoot with, like high-8 cameras, and we would edit in camera. We'd hook the cameras together, press record on one, play on the other, and then pull the tapes out and switch them around. So, like looking at that, and that was, I guess it was 15, 20 years ago. But it's interesting how much things have changed, and now I feel like I can do a quasi-professional looking interview with actual professionals.
What?
Not just my dumb friends. No offense, Bill. I think you're smart. Yeah. Really bright guy. I'll edit that one out. I wanted to talk a little more about your costuming, because it seems like every time I run into you, you're wearing a costume. Do you have like rattle off for me your top 3 or 5 or however many? What are your favorite costumes to wear to either conventions or gatherings or whatever?
I've got a 10th Doctor, a Tenant costume, complete with a Magnolia Tenant suit and an Abishot coat Dr. Coat.
I didn't even have to ask for the breakdown.
Yeah.
You knew what I was looking for.
Oh yes. So it's like, and it is again, it's nice to have the ability to get the most accurate thing that you can for that particular costume. I've got a Battlestar Galactica Officer Blues, a set of Officer Blues by Novos, complete with I think my rank badge is Captain.
Oh, I see. Didn't you also do? I think you and Jenny appeared in a print ad or a web ad for Novos.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, they had Novo Geek.
Yeah, that was it.
So which is the concept is to bring these genres into the regular world in a very subtle way. So instead of wearing a full set of duty blues, you would just take the rank pins and make those into cufflinks. And so it would be just a really subtle touch. But
whisper.
Yes.
Of geekdom.
And if you were someone who was familiar with the series and you saw that, you would go, "That's awesome."
Jose, that'll be $50, please.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so sorry. So you got now. Tell me a little about. Oh, sorry. Duty blues. Back to you.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I've got the duty blues, which are awesome and they're fun to wear. But probably, I think my crown jewel is a Battlestar Galactica Viper flight suit, which I had custom made for me by a very talented guy named Jeff Gay in Ohio. And he makes these from the best available materials. It's sort of like, in this realm, when you get to this level of costuming, you have to find the bolt of the special fabric, the Summers fabric, which is not made anymore. That's the problem with these series is they grab whatever they've got at the time, which is plentiful, readily available, and then they make the series, they make the costumes, and that goes away, and you see it maybe a year or two later, and then several years later, when you decide that you want to make this costume, suddenly this thing that everybody had 10 years ago no longer exists. And you go on eBay to look for that thing, whatever it is, and a $4 USB hub is now like $150 because people know.
Right. They
know that you're looking for this thing and there's not a whole lot of them. And if you've got it, it's valuable.
Ugh.
So, yeah.
You know who has it the worst, I think, is the Doctor Who fans. Because so much of the stuff it's either off the shelf or completely custom made. Like the Tennant suit, if I remember correctly, was originally cobbled together from a couple pairs of trousers.
Right.
From the Gap,
yes.
Which of course are no longer available. So you're kind of sunk. And a lot of the Matt Smith clothing was sewn with fabric that they made a bolt of it, and the Doctor Who production bought all of it,
yes.
or half of it, or whatever. And I feel a great deal of sympathy for the Doctor Who fans who want to be 100% accurate because that stuff's so hard to find. And even when you find it,
yeah.
In fact, I'll tell you a quick story, which I will delete. He debuted at WonderCon, the 11th Doctor's new purple
coat. The long coat.
Yeah.
Which I really like. I like that coat.
So he had it before it even aired on an episode. He found the fabric. The coat took 3 yards. Fabric was $400 a yard.
Wow.
And he paid a guy like $600 to actually put the thing together, so.
You know what? Speaking of that stuff, I'll tell you, the only part that Jeff could not make because it was no longer made was the duty belt.
Okay.
And the duty belt had these pouches, which, at the time were a Canadian police outfitter. And so they just got, these pouches that look kind of fun and futuristic.
Yeah.
Went out of business. Somebody bought all the molds and they're refusing to make any more. Like you could, even if you had the money to make a custom run of, like if you had 10 grand to commission them to make a custom run, they still wouldn't do it.
Not even for Grant Imahara of TV's Mythbusters?
Not even for Grant Imahara. And if you could find these people to get them to do it.
Ugh.
So one of them came up in a PropWorks auction on eBay, and I got into a huge bidding war
Do you
with
know
the
who it was
guy.
with?
No.
Okay.
I should someday find out. I hope it wasn't you.
No. You bastard. That'd be a great story.
And that was you! How much did I pay? I paid a lot.
Over 500?
Oh, yes.
Oh boy.
Over 1,000? Yes.
Over
2,000?
Oh
Yes.
no.
Over 3,000? Yes.
Really? You are hardcore, sir.
I would not be denied. I am a man of
I like
means
that.
and will,
I like
and
that
I would
value,
not
sir.
be denied.
I like that.
So finally, I triumphantly got this screen used duty belt. There's no firearm, just the belt and the pouches. But it was an awesome, awesome moment, and
And you're wearing it now.
Yeah, I wear it now underneath my clothing
I have it on
every
all
day.
time.
I do have the original. I've got a certificate, and still actually one of the crowning pieces in my collection.
Interesting. So you're a huge BSG fan.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to go up on the sets up in Canada?
No. Well, the thing is, much like my Doctor Who fandom, which I became a huge fan after the fact,
Oh, okay.
I became a huge fan of Battlestar Galactica after the fact because I was so, when the reboot was first announced,
Lame.
they're like, yeah, we're redoing Battlestar Galactica.
Starbucks a chick.
Starbuck is
There's a bored
female.
girl who's 7
and
of 9
I'm
or
like,
something.
what is? And no, that just sounds
Yeah, I'm not into
stupid.
it.
And I remember one day I was at home, sick or something, flipping through channels, and I see this show, and these guys are in a forest, and they're like firing guns. It's like these sort of commando rebels, and they're firing against these really crazy robots, like these tall silvery robots. I'm like, whoa, this show looks really awesome. Like, and I was just riveted. I kept watching and suddenly I realized, oh my God, this is Battlestar Galactica. And then at that moment, I was like, I was so stupid. And so I went back to the beginning, and from the first episode on, it was just
Hooked.
awesome.
Do you think the show ended well?
Not really.
Okay.
I've had this discussion with a number of different people, but
Not into it.
not so much into it. But you know what?
It's their choice.
It's a great
It's an
ride.
artistic choice.
Yes.
The guy who's doing my Batmobile apparently has a question.
Oh, geek world problems, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm trying to introduce Randy Imahara of TV's Mythbusters. Call me about my Batmobile
Oh my
later.
God, yeah.
Please. Please.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you over the sound of my own awesome.
Ridiculous.
Actually, that's a great transition for another thing I wanted to talk. Are you still okay for time, by the way? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
one thing I'm very curious about, and we discussed this a long time ago, in fact, when we were talking about TARDIS, I'm very curious about projects, personal projects of yours that you work on. Are there such things? Like, are you building anything
Yeah.
of your own?
outside of the office?
Oh yeah. Personal projects are my love and also the bane of my existence. Because, I'll have an idea for something cool, like a giant 6-legged walking robot that's the size of a table. And it'll be something where it's like, I know I can do this. But 9 months later, when I'm still working on it, like every night till midnight, I'm like, why did I think of this?
I'm sorry, Grant. I just don't know what that's like. I'm just not,
Yeah, that's right.
I'm just not connecting with you at this point.
I
so
know.
That's unfortunate.
I know. I like watching your videos because
I actually like watching yours.
I feel
so.
I feel that pain,
Yeah.
that pain of like something that doesn't quite work out, and then you have to completely rework it, and that takes more time.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that robot you mentioned, was that a hypothetical example, or is that actually something you...
No, it's sitting up there on the shelf. See that leg sticking down? So
Oh,
go
yeah.
right up there, the little pointy
Yeah,
silvery things underneath that white sheet.
Huh.
Yeah, it's up there. I will get back back to that someday.
Aw.
It looks cool.
It made a few design errors. It's about maybe 75% complete. I have to rework a bunch of stuff. But it was the point where I was like, this sucks. What am I thinking? Okay, going up on the shelf.
Right.
But I get to that point like 80% of the way through.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Jenny, my girlfriend, who you know, will have a friend who says, oh, hey, you know what? You make props and could you do me a thing? And so I just spent the last month or so making an Equalist glove from Legend of Korra. So, you know, it's like, the fun thing is trying out new materials. Like there's a new material called Warbler, which is heat formable, and you can do all these crazy things with it. So I was like, oh, well, that'll be a fun opportunity to try that out. And then, you know, it's got like 2 light up discs, and the idea is that in this world where half the population has the power to control elements, which they call bending. The other half are just regular humans. And so the regular humans are rebelling back, and they created this glove that can shock someone when you hit them. And so if you have one of these, you go up to a bender and then like they takes away their powers temporarily, thus equalizing them.
I see.
Equalist glove.
I see.
But it's got light up parts and, you know, kind of funny, fun steampunky elements to it. So I did that, and, you know, I have other projects. I make robots for people, like if
I
Craig
got some
Ferguson.
stuff I need built, man. I could offload some projects to you. That'd free up some time. We should talk.
Yeah, you know what? I've got the list, and I'm whittling the list down. But yeah, there are people like, you know, Craig Ferguson will say, hey, we would love to have a robot for our show. Can you make me a talking robot skeleton? Yes, I can. So, you know, he gets top priority, you know.
Have you, my good friend Bill Fisher, I mentioned earlier, his hobbies, he builds airplanes.
Which I think is crazy.
That he flies?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, his plan is to like throw him and his family into an airplane and fly to Canada. I don't judge. It's not true, I do. But he actually introduced me to a great expression, which maybe you've heard of. Maybe you've heard this before, but when you were talking about robot, it reminded me. On the project.
That is so true. Because it is that last 10%. You think 90%? Yeah, it's almost done. It's not almost done. There are months of all-nighters waiting for you.
Yep. Infinite noodling.
In that 10%. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, and my biggest fear, actually with the TARDIS, I have a hard stop. Because if I end up going to Canada, I'll be done with it. But the TARDIS is such a manageable project. In fact, the whole reason I took it on when I did is because I really believed that I could just sort of do it and be done with it. Unlike something like the Batmobile or the robot, where
you could conceivably noodle that thing, like, you know, get more performance out of it. Get.
What if I had pop-up guns?
Yeah, totally.
You know, what if I added fire coming out the back?
Oh, I thought we were still talking about your robot. Yeah, guns and fire.
Either one. I was. But yes.
So I imagine,
and you're also like, how many hours a day does the show take up of yours?
It's like full time. It's a full time gig. Yeah, 8:30 to 5:30, Monday through Friday.
So to recap, let me make sure I got this right in my head. So full-time job.
Yep.
Full-time girlfriend.
Yep.
Numerous web series.
Yep.
Numerous costumes.
Yep.
Convention appearances. I believe you also do speaking engagements all the time. And by convention appearances, I meant like you actually attending a con. And then there's also like you actually doing a gig at a con.
Yep.
I'm going to assume you don't sleep, so we'll take that off the table.
Honestly, how, dumb question, how do you do it?
It's not a dumb question. And the thing is, the astounding thing is that I used to do more. On top of all that, back in the day, you know, I would be building more robots to fight each other, and I honestly don't know. The only thing that I have going for me is that all these things don't necessarily happen at the same time. So theoretically, if I wanted to go to a convention and make that my life, I could probably find a convention to go to somewhere in the world every weekend.
Absolutely.
That's a given.
But now you'll be able to go to Star Trek Con.
Yeah, that's true. But the truth is, I pick and choose which conventions I go to, and I pick which costumes I want to do and which props that I'm building. So, there's a list of people who, are sort of waiting for me to become available to make something for them. Yeah, I know. You're on the list somewhere.
Well, in that case, and I say this in full sincerity, that makes me appreciate the time you've given me tonight for this interview even more. So thank you again.
Well, for that. Thank you. It's my pleasure.